Hi, my name's Sam, and welcome to what I hope will be the first of many Monday Musings. This is a section where I take an issue that's affecting the small and indie press at the moment, and I just talk unscripted to the webcam about what I think we can do to improve those situations. And the first thing I wanted to touch on is bad conventions. So this is different things to different people. So for some, a bad convention means a lack of sales. For other people, it's about atmosphere. And then there are some who, they want a Comic-Con to be about comics, not people who are on EastEnders or Storage Wars. So first and foremost, I'm not going to sit here and define what makes a bad convention. I think there have been a lot of blogs, a lot of videos, etc. discussing that topic the past 2 weeks. I have no interest in adding to that definition, and as I say, the definition for this video is somewhat irrelevant because it's all those different things to different people. What I want to talk about is, if you are having a bad convention, what can you do about it? How can you turn that situation around? How can you make things better? And the first thing we need to look at there is where an issue is best resolved, because there are different levels that you can take it to. So, you can resolve some things yourself, other things need to be taken to organisers, so on and so forth. So, if we take a look at you're having, bad sales, bad footfall, what have you. Maybe the table layouts have been changed and the maps are out of date, or maybe there's no map at all, maybe there's no signage. The first thing you can do there, take to social media, get on your Twitter, get on your Facebook, get on your Instagram, get on your Tumblr, and tell the people who follow you there where to find you. That would be resolving it at your level, doing everything that you can. To take it to an organizer level would be to, potentially see if there are any empty tables in higher traffic areas you can move to, seeing if you can get some last-minute signage put up, seeing if you can, maybe get some tannoy announcements made to say, hey, there is a second room, and in that second room there are all these awesome artists, go take a look. The first main room isn't everything. So let's look at, for example, sales. One thing that I very commonly see, which you can control, is there'll always be, every convention there is a post saying, hey guys, how's everyone getting on? And sometimes this will be, sort of like a mother hen type figure, just making sure all her chicks are okay. His or her chicks are okay. So that's fine, I guess. That's showing some concern. But a lot of the time, the ones that I've seen anyway, it's a case of, I'm having a bad show, and I want to probe to see if anyone else is having a bad show. And it's this weird thing where people come back and they go, yes, my sales are bad too. So the first issue with that is that bad sales are different things to different people. What I guess some people call a beer money seller, I've got my career, that's my day job, that does the bills. I don't need conventions to cover the bills. A lot of the time, I'm really happy if, I go to a convention, see a new part of the country, get my artwork in some new people's hands, get a pint with a couple of creators I maybe haven't met up with in a while, and be, £20 down. That's a good weekend for me. There are other people, just today I was reading a Facebook post where someone was asking figures, what do you consider a good convention? What's your thresholds for rebooking? And there was everything from £70 profit to £1,000 profit overall, to someone saying, I need at least £500 per day profit, or I'm not getting out of bed. So by saying, how's everyone's day going, it doesn't actually give you any information, because everyone's definition of good is different. Second of all, if other people come back and say, yeah, I'm having a terrible time too, oh, right, okay, this must be a bad convention. So it displaces the blame, and yes, certain conventions could be better organised, I'm not denying that. But it gives you sort of this instant self-satisfaction, it's not my problem, it's the convention, and suddenly you're in a place where you don't necessarily need to do anything about it, because the problem's not with you. So then you don't change your approach to suit the show that you're at. And that just leads to a negative atmosphere, first of all, because everyone's getting the same impression at that point. Everyone who's in that Facebook chat is like, oh yeah, this is a bad one, which means they're then not giving it 100%, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's, this is like people even leaving early sometimes. You're not... How can you make a single sale if you're not there? You can't. Stick it out. Stay to the end. You never know, you might get surprised. I've had large sales come in the last 10 minutes of a convention that's completely turned the day around. And I also think that while you're on the Facebook group saying, how's everyone's day, how's everyone finding it, you're not actively selling, you're not drawing people over, you're not talking to anyone, so you won't be selling your product at that time. I am fine with people asking this question outside of convention hours, that if you are midway through a convention, you are... I don't know what's going on with the lights in here today, I do apologise for that, keep going in and out. If you're at a convention and you're saying, ooh, this is a bad one today, you're not... No one's going to approach you while you're staring at your phone. Stand up, smile, be tall and proud, be happy to welcome people in, talk to them. You're going to have a much better chance in that case. So, that's talking about changing it at your level. To look at, things from an organiser's level, we recently had the Yorkshire Cosplay Con. And they had put some artists upstairs, out of the way, no one could find them. And the artists were annoyed by this for two reasons. One, when they had done the show last year, they were down in the main hall for the same price, and they reasonably expected the same thing to happen again. Okay, yeah, fair enough, fine. They also had artists downstairs who had paid the same price, so they were at the show going, well, that person's paid the same price as me, and they're in a better position, they're in a better spot. That does not seem fair. I feel like I haven't gotten what I paid for. People aren't making their way up here. And they did the social media thing. Everything I just said about, right at the very start, to, try and pull people upstairs and drum up the interest and shout from the rooftops, we're here, come find us. And it just wasn't working. Now, what I should state here is that these are second-hand accounts. I wasn't at Yorkshire Cosplay Con. However, the people who have been posting it, I do trust them implicitly. Now, what was very nice to see was that actually the artists approached the organisers and said, look, you have empty tables downstairs. We could just, move down there. A, it's better footfall for us. B, for you guys, empty tables look bad for a convention, so let us fill them. And apparently the organisers refused that initially, which is absolutely ridiculous. It should have been a no-brainer because it benefited all parties involved. I'm amazed that they said no. But what I really like is they came together as a group. It wasn't one individual going and saying something about it. They all came together and said, right, we are going to, go and talk to them as a unit. Because one person complaining, you could be like, oh, well, that's just a negative Nancy. We'll just brush them off. Maybe don't give them a table in future. If it's a group of you, or you're all saying the same thing, or it's numerous individual reports, you have a much better leg to stand on. Oh, maybe there is a problem. That's the response you're going to get if we're all saying the same thing. So major props for doing that. Could not have been happier to hear that you guys came together for that. Really fantastic to hear. Now, and again, this is second-hand information, I wasn't there personally, but they followed the rules for issue resolution and confrontation perfectly. You need to go in, you need to be reasonable, you need to be looking at a resolution, and need to be prepared with a solution. So, it's this format of, it's similar to giving constructive critique for artwork. I'm not happy about this. These are the reasons I'm not happy, and this is how it could be improved going forward. So, look, we paid for these tables, given what we got last year, the footfall and the traffic and the placement doesn't seem right. We're then looking at other artists who have presumably paid the same amount, who have much better placement than us. That's not fair, that's not even, we don't like that. So the reasons we don't like it is it's reduced footfall, we're not making the money back. If we don't make the money back, we can't book your con next year. That's how it works. It's a lot of independent artists are convention to convention. There's no shame in that. So, how we'd like to see it improved, we've got some empty tables down in the area with high traffic, which looks bad for you. We would like to occupy those tables so that A, we have a much better chance of making our costs back, and, B, your convention looks full, rather than having empty tables. I can't believe they apparently refused that the first time. They did eventually, on the second day of the show, the Sunday, say okay, and they let the artists move down there, but only some of them. Only some of them. There was some still stuck upstairs for the rest of the weekend, who I just feel terrible for. But that was a really good example of, coming together and saying, here's the problem, here's what we want. Similarly, I had an experience at an MCM where I have to give Gary Howe, the guy who organises the MCM Comic Village, all of the respect in the world. Essentially, I was next to a very disrespectful table. I kid you not, they brought a boombox with them, and they were playing all of Radio 1's greatest hits at the time. It was insufferable. And they were even, they plugged a microphone into the boombox and then started shouting random trivia questions at passers-by. It was insane. Then they got a large group of, 4 or 5 people, and they were giving them leaflets and flyers to go walking around, literally poaching people from other tables, dragging them over, and even, pinching people from their neighbours' tables while their neighbours were mid-pitch. So, in the first instance, I had a quiet word with them and said, look, I'm not happy about how you're doing this, it's disrespectful, it's not courteous, it's just, we're meant to be a community, we're meant to help each other, we're meant to give each other a leg up. Cut it out, basically. And their response to that was so aggressive and so in my face that the people from the table opposite me hopped over their table and ran in to back me up and say, no, this isn't on, that's not cool. And then the behaviour continued, so I contacted Gary Howe, who was organising the Comic Village, and said, look, this is what's going on, and there are several of us that aren't happy about it. We've had a word with them. We would now like you to come have a word, because they've not listened to us. We're hoping if they hear it from the organisers, then they might start paying some attention. So Gary came over and said, look, knock it off. But the second he was out of sight, out of earshot, they put the boombox back on again. They just went straight back to form, you know what I mean? And the flyering and walking around, that's against the Comic Village rules and such. So, the boombox, Christ, I don't think there's a specific rule against it, because it's assumed that it's common sense that you don't do that. Sorry, I'm getting a little passionate about that one. This is going back 3 years now, at least. I remember, and I'm not going to advertise them because, frankly, screw those guys, but I remember telling Sarah Millman and the T-Bub Twisted Dark guys in the pub afterwards, and they immediately knew who I was talking about. So these guys were notorious for pulling this stuff. So at that point he said, Gary I messaged Gary and said, look, they are carrying on. He's like, yeah, no, we've noticed as soon as they think our backs are turned, they're back at it, and we're not happy about it. So it reached a point where I put out a message on my Facebook page saying, hey, did you pick up issue 1 yesterday and really enjoy it? This was the second day of the show. Issue 2 is now out. Come get a copy. And there was basically someone who was following my page replied saying, would love to, but I don't want to get harassed at the dicks at the table next to you again. By the dicks at the table next to you again, even. And I screenshotted that, thought enough is enough. And I showed that to Gary, and that was pretty much the last straw. To my knowledge, they were banned from MCM London events until they could prove they could behave at smaller MCM events. So, your Telford Midlands one, the Birmingham one, so on and so forth. So that was, I tried to address the issue and got nowhere. Then the organisers tried, really credit to them, to address the issue. And it got to a point where, they had to say, look, okay, we're not happy to have you here. So, there are different things that you can do. You are always in control of you. And I think if we're going to start entering into discussions with convention organisers, as has been suggested, and quite rightly so, by John Locke, Sarah Millman, Dave West, Joe Glass, and pretty much everyone else in the entire indie comics community, then we need to be respectful, we need to be reasonable. What we need to understand in terms of things like placement, floor space isn't cheap. They've hired out the venue, they need to make their money back. Small press, we need the subsidized stables because unfortunately, as it currently stands, we're not a huge draw. We don't make that much money off of our books. And actually, most conventions recognize that by offering, MCM Comic Village is a third of the cost of the cheapest dealer's stable. Most other conventions that I go to, an artist's table or a small press table is half the price of any other table. And that's fantastic. It's rare that you're paying more than £40 per day for a table as a small presser. And you can't beat that. And we need to remember that we are in the cheap seats. And we do need to be grateful that that option exists. Otherwise, some of us just could not exhibit at all. And with that comes the fact that we are not going to get the best placement. We're not. Essentially, if we want the better placement, we need to pay for it. And I think that's a reasonable response from convention organisers. And I don't think the burden of making us a better attraction so that we can pull in more money to afford the better tables, I don't think that burden is on them. I think that burden is entirely on us. And I think one of the things we need to do, and partly why I'm glad to see Small Press actually getting a little bit more of a YouTube presence, this is contributing towards that, of course, is that we can, if we can get people to come to us, if we can promote ourselves through Instagram, through YouTube, through Twitch with live streaming, drawing, through podcasts, huge shout out to things like the Awesome Comics podcast, the Pull List magazine by Pipe Dream Comics, the website. They do a pull list magazine, which just covers all indie and small press. The Comic Heroes magazine in stores is now doing interviews and such with small press creators in the UK. You've got A Place to Hang Your Cape, ap2hyc.com. They are doing a ton of small press coverage, and we cannot forget, possibly the granddaddy of them all, downthetubes.net. They give fantastic coverage of indie books. But I think if we can make ourselves the attraction, if we can make ourselves the things that people want to see, instead of queuing for an autograph from a guy who was in Storage Wars, then we can, hopefully the convention organisers will go, ooh, they're selling tickets, they're getting traffic, they're bringing people through this door, let's, and then we're in a position to negotiate. Then we're able to say, yeah, we're the heart and soul, but we need to be that heart and soul first. I think I'm rambling, but I'm kind of making my point. There are conventions like ICE, which has, I think this weekend is ICE Brighton, this weekend coming, and they do a Birmingham show as well. Fantastic. Indie comics, wall to wall. True Believers Comic Festival. Again, big supporter of indies. You've got Nottingham. You've got Leamington. These comic-centric shows do exist. And I think what we need to prove is that, these shows can be successful. And that will only happen if we turn up, if we support them, and if we help them to be successful. And on that note, as sort of a final closing thing on what we can do today to start improving this situation, a lot of people rag on the Comic-Cons with no comics, and I've joined in. I'll be honest, I've completely 100%. I've been there going, yes! And it's funny in the moment. But on reflection, when I sit back and I think about it and I go, well, it's not helping. I think what helps is, for example, Didcot Comic Con I did, and they didn't have... I just messaged them saying, oh, what comic artists do you have, and do you have any, comic tables? No, they didn't. They didn't have either. They didn't seem to really know about small press. It was, kind of a small convention. So, I went along, and actually I did fairly well at Didcot Comic Con because I was one of the few people with comics at a Comic Con. So it was sort of a lack of competition helped me to do well, but it also introduced a lot of people who didn't know that small press was a thing to small press. Likewise, Swindon Film Comic Con doesn't have a lot of comic guests, but the guys behind King's Legacy, they're going along, and I don't doubt that they will do well. There will be people who turn up to Comic-Con for comics, and actually, if you're the guy there supporting with comics content, A, you're going to get the reward, because they'll come to you, they don't really have any other choice but to, but also B, the organisers and the attendees might start to go, you know what? This comics stuff at Comic-Con is actually pretty good. And then hopefully make, strides to having more comic content and wanting more of us there. I don't know, maybe it's a bit pie in the sky, maybe it's a bit idealist. Usually I'm a lot more cynical and grumpy than this, but damn it, Sarah Millman has become my spirit animal since she got me fired up on this subject, and I'm entirely blaming you. And I feel that there's a hell of a lot we can do. Be the change that you want to see. Rah, rah. I'm going to sign it off there, but hopefully this has, if nothing else, at least been entertaining for you, and I will see you all very soon. Thank you for watching.